Me. Look at it.
Kidô Senshi Gandamu was not just a robot cartoon made to sell toys. It was a creative mutiny that detonated inside Japanese television and rewired what animation was allowed to be. Behind the clean cell animation was panic confusion and near collapse. Sponsors pushed back. Ratings fell apart. The director fought exhaustion and isolation. What looked calm on screen was a production constantly on the edge of cancellation. These are 15 wild facts about Kidô Senshi Gandamu. Here are the first 5. Fact number 15. The series was a ratings failure that should have ended everything. Kidô Senshi Gandamu premieres in 1979 and immediately struggles to find an audience as children fail to connect with its heavy tone, and parents complain about its bleak themes while networks panic over declining numbers. Instead of colorful heroics, viewers get war arguments, civilian deaths, and a crying protagonist, which causes the series to be cut short at 43 episodes long before its planned run ends. What audiences did not know is that Yoshiyuki Tomino is forced to compress story arcs, rewrite scripts overnight, and sharpen emotional beats because cancellation looms constantly over production. There is no luxury of long build-up only survival storytelling where every episode might be the last. It is not a triumphant success, but a desperate scramble to finish something meaningful before the plug is pulled. Ironically, reruns later explode in popularity among older viewers, turning a failure into a legend. Gundam does not succeed when it airs. It survives long enough to be rediscovered. Fact number 14. The original toy line flopped and nearly killed the franchise. Gundam exists to sell toys, and at first it completely fails at that mission because the mobile suits are designed like military hardware rather than friendly superhero robots, and children do not want them. The original toy line sells poorly, sponsors grow impatient, and the show comes dangerously close to being erased from history. What audiences did not know is that the entire franchise is saved by a radical shift when Bandai introduces plastic model kits aimed at older fans rather than children. Gunpla transforms Gundam from a toy property into a hobby culture where realism engineering and customization become the appeal. The show itself does not sell toys. The world it creates sells obsession. That pivot rescues Gundam and permanently changes how anime merchandising works. It is not playtime anymore. It is craftsmanship and identity. And from that moment forward, Gundam stops chasing kids and starts shaping generations. Fact number 13. Mobile suits are written as disposable weapons, not heroes. Before Gundam robots are portrayed as near mythic saviors, but Kidô Senshi Gandamu rejects that idea completely by treating mobile suits as expendable weapons that break, explode, and take their pilots with them. What audiences did not know is that this approach is a conscious ideological decision by Tomino, who wants machines to feel like tanks rather than icons. Zaku units are destroyed in waves named Pilots Die Without Ceremony, and victories feel hollow because survival is temporary. The Gundam itself is not sacred. It is equipment. Camera angles mimic battlefield footage, explosions interrupt conversations, and hero moments are undercut by loss. This transforms the genre by removing fantasy invincibility and replacing it with attrition. Once robots can die, so can illusions. Gundam does not glorify combat. It documents the cost of it. Fact number 12. Tomino's personal darkness shapes the series' tone. During production, Yoshiyuki Tomino is emotionally exhausted and deeply disillusioned with both the industry and society, and that mental state bleeds directly into Gundam. What audiences did not know is that the nickname Killer Tomino emerges because of the sheer number of deaths he writes and the relentless bleakness of his worldview. Children die, authority figures fail, and war consumes everything it touches because Tomino wants viewers uncomfortable rather than entertained. Sponsors push back, constantly asking for softer tones, but he resists wherever possible. Gundam becomes a confrontation rather than escapism, using animation to express anger, grief, and moral fatigue. This is not accidental darkness. It is personal expression under pressure. That honesty leaves scars on its creator, but also gives the series a voice that feels painfully real decades later. Fact number 11. Amuro Ray is intentionally designed to be frustrating. Amuro Ray is not written as a confident hero, but as a frightened, unstable teenager forced into combat before he is emotionally capable of handling it, and that choice alienates early viewers. What audiences did not know is that Tomino deliberately rejects the traditional brave protagonist because he wants realism over inspiration. Amuro runs away, argues, disobeys, and breaks down because that is how a real child reacts to war. His growth is slow, uneven, and painful, with lasting consequences rather than instant heroism. This makes him difficult to like at first, but profoundly influential over time, as audiences recognize themselves in his fear rather than his strength. Gundam does not ask who will save the world. It asks who survives it, and that shift permanently changes anime storytelling. Fact number 10. Studio interference almost softened Gundam into oblivion. As ratings slide and sponsors panic, the studio repeatedly pressures the creative team to make Gundam brighter, simpler, and more toy-friendly by reducing political dialogue and increasing flashy combat. What audiences did not know is that several scripts are flagged for being too grim, too talkative, and too adult for a children's time slot, and Tomino is asked to tone down deaths and moral ambiguity. He pushes back whenever possible, but compromises are forced into certain episodes, creating a constant tug-of-war behind the scenes. This friction shapes the series rhythm, where moments of explosive action suddenly give way to long, tense conversations about duty and fear. That resistance preserves Gundam's identity. It is not propaganda for toys. It is argument through animation. And right here, go ahead and like and subscribe, because this exact battle between commerce and creativity still defines anime production today. Gundam survives not by obeying interference, but by enduring it. Fact number 9. The White Base crew is written like refugees, not heroes. The crew of the White Base is not a trained elite force, but a collection of civilians, children, and reluctant officers thrown together by circumstance. What audiences did not know is that this dynamic is intentionally modeled after refugee movements and wartime evacuations rather than military squads. Characters argue over food, leadership collapses under pressure, and authority is constantly questioned because no one is truly prepared. This makes the ship feel unstable and human rather than heroic. Battles are not glorious missions, but desperate attempts to survive another day. The White Base does not symbolize power. It symbolizes displacement. That realism grounds the series emotionally and reframes space warfare as chaos rather than adventure. Gundam does not show a united front. It shows people barely holding together, and that vulnerability makes every victory feel temporary and every loss heavier. Fact number 8. The new type concept emerges from war trauma. New types are not mystical superpowers in Gundam, but a controversial idea born from the psychological effects of living in space and surviving constant combat. What audiences did not know is that new types are written as an evolutionary response to war isolation and sensory overload, rather than destiny. Characters experience heightened awareness, emotional resonance, and mental collapse as much as strength. This reframes psychic ability as burden, not gift. Amuro's growth terrifies him as much as it empowers him, and new type encounters often end in tragedy rather than triumph. Gundam uses this concept to explore how trauma reshapes humanity rather than elevates it. It is not transcendence, it is adaptation through suffering. This philosophical shift influences decades of sci-fi storytelling by linking power to cost instead of fantasy reward. Fact number 7. Char Aznable is built as a mirror, not a villain. Char Aznable is not written as a traditional antagonist, but as a reflection of Amuro, shaped by different choices, losses, and ideologies. What audiences did not know is that Char's charisma is intentionally designed to blur moral lines rather than clarify them. He fights for revenge ideology and identity rather than simple conquest, which makes him dangerously compelling. His iconic mask is not just a disguise, but a symbol of fractured selfhood. Char embodies the consequences of obsession and unresolved grief, showing what happens when war consumes purpose entirely. This complexity turns him into one of anime's most enduring figures because he is not evil. He is understandable. Gundam refuses to offer easy villains. It offers broken people moving in opposite directions. Fact number 6. The series rewrites what anime is allowed to discuss. Before Gundam, televised animation rarely engages directly with politics, systemic war economics, or moral ambiguity aimed at young audiences. What audiences did not know is that Gundam deliberately introduces themes of colonialism, class resentment, propaganda, and generational trauma into a space opera framework. Zeon is not just evil. It is born from inequality and radicalization. The Federation is not righteous. It is bureaucratic and manipulative. Gundam does not tell viewers what to think. It forces them to think. That choice expands the narrative ceiling of anime forever. After Gundam, animation is no longer limited to escapism. It becomes a vehicle for debate. And that legacy continues to shape storytelling across mediums decades later. Fact number 5. The compilation films rewrite history after cancellation. After the television run ends quietly, Gundam should fade away, but instead it is resurrected through 3 theatrical compilation films that radically reframe the series. What audiences did not know is that Tomino uses these movies to correct pacing problems, sharpen themes, and recontextualize characters that were rushed during the broadcast crisis. Scenes are trimmed, reordered, and emotionally intensified, creating a tighter, more devastating narrative that finally lands with adult audiences. The films attract viewers who never watched the show, and critics who dismissed it as children's fare. This second life transforms Gundam from a failed series into a cinematic event, and legitimizes anime as serious film storytelling. It is not a recap. It is a revisionist rescue. The movies do what the television schedule never allowed, and they prove Gundam's ideas work when given space. Cancellation does not end the story. It gives it clarity. Fact number 4. Fan culture builds the legend before the industry does. Gundam's rise is not driven by executives or critics, but by fans who organize screenings, publish fanzines, and debate lore obsessively. What audiences did not know is that early Gundam fandom resembles underground culture more than mainstream success, with college clubs and hobby shops acting as distribution nodes for discussion and model building. This grassroots momentum pressures studios to acknowledge the property's value long after it is written off. Fan letters influence reissues. Event attendance drives investment. Gundam becomes one of the first anime franchises where audience passion directly reshapes corporate decisions. It is not marketing push, it is cultural pull. That relationship changes how anime is produced and sustained, proving that long-term engagement matters more than overnight ratings. Gundam survives because its viewers refuse to let it disappear. Fact number 3. Real-world politics inform the fiction constantly. Gundam's conflicts echo real geopolitical anxieties from the late Cold War period, including proxy wars, militarization, and ideological extremism. What audiences did not know is that these parallels are intentional, with factions designed to feel morally compromised rather than purely righteous. Dialogue references, resource control, population, displacement, and propaganda in ways unusual for animation at the time. This grounding makes battles feel consequential rather than symbolic. Gundam does not invent conflict. It translates it. That realism unsettles viewers because it reflects contemporary fears through science fiction. The series becomes a mirror held up to modern warfare rather than an escape from it. By embedding political logic into its universe, Gundam expands what genre storytelling can accomplish and invites viewers to question power rather than cheer it. Fact number 2. Amuro and Char's rivalry defines a generation. The relationship between Amuro Ray and Char Aznable evolves beyond hero versus villain into a philosophical collision that spans decades of sequels and reinterpretations. What audiences did not know is that this rivalry is designed to remain unresolved, reflecting how ideological conflicts rarely end cleanly. Their encounters are charged with recognition, resentment, and reluctant respect, turning every meeting into emotional warfare. Neither fully defeats the other because they represent opposing responses to trauma and loss. This dynamic becomes the emotional engine of the franchise, influencing countless future characters across anime. It is not rivalry for spectacle, it is argument through action. Gundam proves that enduring conflict is more powerful than decisive victory, and that unresolved tension can define cultural memory. Fact number 1. Gundam creates the real robot genre permanently. Before Gundam, giant robots exist in fantasy logic, but after it, the real robot genre is born with mechanical limitations, military hierarchy, and human cost at its core. What audiences did not know is that this shift permanently restructures anime production by demanding technical consistency, political context, and psychological realism. Gundam becomes the blueprint others must respond to either by imitation or rejection. Its influence spreads beyond anime into games, films, and global science fiction design. This is not just a hit series. It is a new grammar for storytelling. Gundam teaches creators that spectacle is stronger when grounded, and that imagination gains power when constrained by reality. Once this door opens, it never closes again. Bonus fact: the title, Gundam, has no official meaning. Despite decades of analysis, there is no definitive meaning for the word Gundam itself. What audiences did not know is that the name is a constructed sound chosen for impact, rather than explanation, with interpretations emerging only after success. This ambiguity allows the franchise to absorb new meanings over time, becoming symbol rather than definition. Gundam is not a word. It is an idea shaped by context, memory, and repetition. That openness lets the series evolve without breaking its identity. In a story obsessed with labels, factions, and ideology, the central name remains undefined. And that may be the point. Gundam's legacy is not built on perfection, but on resistance against expectation cancellation and simplification. It survives because it refuses easy answers. It endures because it treats war as human, not heroic. If you want more hidden histories from animation that changed everything, like, subscribe, and stay alert.